Hi everybody, it's Deavon with MidPointe Library, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a sourdough bread starter. So the ingredients that you need are 3/4 cup of flour. I'm using all-purpose flour, but you can use any flour that you like, including a gluten-free flour if you wish. So you need 3/4 cup of that and 1/2 cup of water. Normally you would weigh your ingredients and you would need 4 ounces of each, but I do not have a kitchen scale. And I have found that this ratio of flour to water is working pretty well. So those are the only 2 ingredients that you need. You don't need any active yeast. And you're going to put it in a container. And you're just going to mix it up. Make sure that none of the dry ingredient is left over. You want it all to be mixed in fully. So yeah. And you're going to want it to be in a container that you can easily cover. I have mine in a mason jar, but you can use any small bowl or a jar, anything like that. You want it to have a little bit of room because your starter is going to grow. We're going to be feeding it every day, so eventually it'll get up to halfway full before you'll eventually be able to use it. But yeah, so you'll want something that you have a little bit of room to work with. And I recommend being able to use something that you can label. So I'm using my mason jar lid because this is going to be several days of processing before your starter is ready to be made into bread. So make sure you have something that you can label. And you're going to want to make sure that you cover it. If your bowl doesn't have a lid to it, or if you're using a jar that doesn't have a lid, you can cover it with a kitchen cloth or you can use saran wrap. So whatever you have available, go ahead and use that and cover it. And that's all we need to be able to make our starter. You're going to cover it and you're going to put it in an area that is room temperature, so between 70 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. If you like your house or apartment on the cooler side, you can put your starter in your oven with the light on. Not set to any temperature, just in the oven with the light on. That should be enough. Just make sure that you don't forget that it's in there, because that could be dangerous. But if your apartment or house is between 70 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, then you can put it in a cupboard, you can put it on top of your fridge, whatever you want, as long as it's out of the way, because that is all you need. So we have just made day 1 starter. It does take up to a week for the starter to fully develop. So we're going to be feeding it day by day, and I'll be showing you what it looks like each day. So we'll see you back here for day 2. It is day 2 of sourdough starter, and day 2 is actually pretty much the same as the first. We're going to use the same measurements of flour and water, and we're going to mix it in with our already mixed together day 1 starter. One thing that you should note is you might be able to see over in this corner here, there's some little bubbles. That's what we're looking for. If there are no bubbles in yours, that doesn't mean you need to worry. It just could mean that they popped overnight before you got to mixing your day 2 starter. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to mix everything in here. And once it's all mixed together, put it in a lid. Second day, same as the first. We'll put it in a warm area, covered, and wait for the magic to happen. And we'll be back here on day 3. All right, we are at day 3 of our sourdough starter, and hopefully by today you will have seen a whole bunch of little bubbles forming at the top. That is great news. That means that our starter is starting to activate. You may also notice a thin layer of oil. Here, I'll show you what it looks like. It's just a thin oil that rests on the top of your starter. If you do see that, that's great. We just want to scrape that off, like skim it off the top, and then we will feed our starter yet again 3/4 cup flour with 1/2 cup of water and put it back in our storage area. And that is it for day 3 of starter. Day 4 of sourdough starter, you should start seeing this liquid on top develop. So as you see, it looks like it's starting to separate. That's perfectly normal. This stuff on top is actually called hooch because it's like it's separated into like an alcohol with the flour underneath. It's perfectly normal. All we need to do is you can either skim the top off or you can mix it back in. But what you need to do is discard about half a cup of your starter. I've mixed mine in and then discarded before we add the 3/4 cup flour with half a cup of water. Now this hooch develops just because your starter is becoming very active and it's very hungry. So we need to start feeding it twice a day now. So I'm feeding it here in the morning, and then I'm going to be feeding it again this afternoon. And it should start bubbling up quite nicely now. And that just means that it is almost ready, almost an active starter, which is great. So that's how you do sourdough day 4. Remember, feed it twice a day now. All right, we are on our final day of sourdough starter. So my sourdough is starting to thin out a little bit, so I'm going to be starting to add more flour than normal. That's perfectly normal. If you feel like your ratio is working fine, keep on going with that. Like I said the other day, we're going to start feeding it 2 times a day. And once your starter is consistently bubbly, very active, that's when you're going to be able to start using it. To be able to test whether your starter is ready for bread, you're going to do the water test. So you're going to take a bit of starter, put it in a glass or a bowl of water, and if it floats, it's ready to be made into bread. But your starter can be used in many other parts of baking. You can make pancakes with it, you can make tortillas, you can add it to any kind of baking recipe to give it a little bit more flavor. And that's pretty much it. That's how you make sourdough starter. Your starter should be ready to go soon. Usually takes up to 2 weeks for starter to be developed enough for bread. And that's really all you need to know on how to make your own sourdough starter.